Hey guys, big hello and welcome to the first ever Friday Focus. So I'm hoping that I can only get better from here. Oh, who knows? But the purpose of Friday Focus is it's quite easy to sort of get motivated on a Monday, the beginning of the week, where sometimes you can give yourself a couple of days prep, get yourself ready to think about what's going to be happening ahead. You obviously get that from your annual plan, but just sort of going to start breaking down the nitty gritty of my own personal training the week ahead of it. So as some of you know from the annual plan, that I'm just about to head into week one of the full year's plan. So I've just finished off my sort of adaptation phase where I've really scaled back the intensity in terms of the weights that we've been using. Pretty much been using no more than 24s, the odd 20, the odd 28s, 30s on 1 minute interval sets, but very little, but more about just building a base, getting used to trying to refine certain aspects of technique with lighter loads, but also just giving my body a bit of a rest from the lead up to Worlds and the lead up to British Championships, where I spent quite a lot of the year on a heavy weight. So I've just finished that. Obviously I've done a couple of interval sets today, in fact, just to get a feel for the heavier weights again. So I went from 22s all the way up to 30s, minute on, minute off, alternating between jerk and long cycle. So started with 22s, a minute jerk, minute rest, minute long cycle, minute rest, all the way up to 30s, and then finished off with just a 2-minute set on the 30s after I'd done the intervals. Once I'd done that, bit of a rest, and then went into 6 minutes of snatch with the 30s. So very much just getting used to the heavier loads, ready for the next strength phase. So obviously going into strength phase, it's going to be a little bit different. There's different aspects that I'm going to have to take into account. I'm going to have to really focus on a lot more, because as we're going to discover in a minute, that there's a lot more components, and I need to really be on the ball once I start jumping into this phase. Now the phase is going to be not purely strength, and the reason for that is because I've got qualification at the end of the month. So I'm going to have to get some longer sets in there, so it's not going to be a purely max strength phase as you typically would. But for me, purposely where I'm at now, it is going to be a strength phase, i.e. I'm going to have to learn to get stronger under heavier bells again. So it's not your typical max strength phase, but it is a strength phase nevertheless. So that's why I'm going to have to really focus on the different aspects we're just about to cover. But also it's good for me to have an understanding of where I'm heading, where I'm going. So it's starting with the end in mind. So yes, I've got qualification, but the end in mind is it's actually going to be quite a long strength phase, because there's a competition in Denmark in March, and that will be with the 32s. So it's going to be a sort of a longer strength phase in there as well. Going to have a bit of a deload and then scale the weights back a little bit and then elevate up. But that's for future videos. For the sake of this one, because I'm going into this next phase, there's 3 different compartments that make up and support the full performance model. So we've got recovery in there, I've got supplementation that links in with the nutrition. It's kind of a link from the recovery, the nutrition and the training. So although it's not 100% necessity, if you've got something there that's going to help you, legally I may add, if it's going to help you get the most out of your recovery and it's going to get you the most out of your actual training sets, then it's obviously there to help you. So you might as well utilize it and actually put some thought into it. So and then obviously I've got my nutrition there. So going into recovery, now there's lots of different things that make up the recovery model, but the main 2 things that I'm going to be focusing on myself going into next week and going forward is obviously sleep. Now, we covered this in Coach Talk a few weeks back. If you missed out on that one, I recommend going into the community page and have a look in there. This me and Simon discuss certain sleep protocols and some of the research that we found off the back of that. But for me personally, I'm going to be looking to increase my sleep anywhere between 7 to 9 hours, depending on which day of the week it is. So obviously I'm going to have to work on certain aspects on that, different types of pre-sleep routine, and seeing how I can really maximize and get the most out of my sleep, because that is by far the most important aspect of recovery. It doesn't matter if you're stretching for hours on end, if you're not getting adequate enough sleep, then you're really doing yourself a disservice when it comes to your training. So that's what I'm going to be doing. But also I'm going to be focusing on my performance recovery. So what this is I am going to be increasing my frequency in my training, but rather than just sort of being 100 mile an hour every single day, because it's not possible over the long term, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sticking in some high performance recovery training sessions, and this is about trying to speed up my recovery, making sure that I'm not just working really hard then coming to a standstill, working really hard coming to a standstill. It's about giving your body a small dose of concentric type load, but also some real controlled breathing, some mobility type work that is going to lend itself to trying to speed up that recovery process. So getting the blood flowing, getting your heart rate elevated just enough, but also keeping moving and keeping loose, so that when you do jump back onto your high intensity development days, you've got a lot more in the tank. So really trying to work on improving that recovery without sort of going over the top. And the best way that I'll be doing that is using Morpheus and using my HRB, but also using my velocity based training and the jumps off the back of that as well. So there's certain things in there that I've got. Now these aren't going to be set specific days going forward, I imagine, because the simple fact is the way the body works, it's a weird and wonderful thing. I might put it down that it's going to be every Tuesday, Thursday, for example, but there's going to be times when the readings from my jumps and my HRV are going to tell me, no, actually you're just not ready for this development day today, so I'd stick in one of your high performance recovery training sessions. So, but they're going to be getting added in, and the reason being is because I am going into a heavier workload. I want to make sure that I can try and speed up that recovery as much as I possibly can. So moving on to the next thing, so supplementation. I haven't been taking anything really over the past 6 to 8 weeks, kind of just dwindled everything down. The only thing that I've kind of kept is a bit of a staple, and that's mainly to sort of help my sleep a little bit, especially over the festive period while it's been a bit crazy, is my R5s, my Amino Man R5s. For the simple fact is they do help me sleep, and I do get some good recovery off that, but on the whole I haven't really been taking much. So because I'm going to be entering into a bit of a strength phase, I will start to add in creatine, and I will be adding in beta-alanine. Now the reason for this is the science is there, definitely going to help my recovery. It's going to help my performance during the session, and that's what it's mainly about. So those two are supporting recovery, but also elevating my potential during training. Now it might elevate it by 1%. If it elevates it by 1%, happy days. That's all matters, just the little gains and stuff. So basically I'll be adding those two supplements in just to increase into it, so it can allow me to handle the increased intensity. And then finally, the last part of the puzzle is my macro intake. I haven't really been stringent with that, i.e. tracking it as much as I possibly can. So first and foremost, I know where I'm at in terms of weight wise. I know how much weight I kind of needed to drop by the end of the month. But realistically, just by tracking my macros, it keeps me accountable. It makes sure that I'm not adding in the unnecessary foods that I don't really need. We have them for the sake of needing them. And another thing off the back of that is the actual nutrient timing. So because the intensity is going to be elevated a lot more within this phase, there's going to be a lot more frequency. I'm going to have to make sure that I'm really making sure I'm optimal with my nutrition. So that's looking at when am I going to get my meal pre and post training, and when am I eating before bed, because those are the major points for me personally where I seem to struggle, that sort of hold me back a little bit. So really dialing in those things. Now it seems like a lot, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to nail it in 1 week. It'd be great if I could, and I'm going to try me hardest to do that, but it is going to be an ongoing process. But for me, knowing that I'm entering into this, I know what I need to have in place to make sure that I'm getting the most out of that. So I know that I need to order some creatine and beta-alanine. I need to have that. I need to plan when I have those. I need to make sure that the food that I purchase over the weekend is going to fuel this type of training, you know. So I need to make sure that I've got that food in. My weekly schedule, I need to make sure that I've got the flexibility to be adding these in. Although I've got them planned down on my training diary, I need to make sure that there's going to be times when I might need to chop and change around. So Friday Focus is about looking for the week ahead, and this for me, next week I'm entering into week 1. I'm going to be going into my strength phase. So these are the main things that I'm going to be looking at to really support my kettlebell training in terms of the increased load for biathlon and long cycle, so that I can then continue to develop over the long term as well. So hopefully you find it helpful, guys. Hopefully breaking it down like this might give you some tips and some ideas on how you can maybe approach your own training. If you've got any questions at all, feel free just to reach out, drop me a message either via any of the channels, but you can generally catch me at Steve, so STE at kettlebellcommunity.com, or reach out to me on the Facebook group that we've got, which is the TU NOVA Kettlebell Community Group. If you haven't checked it out, jump across. There's some fantastic information in there. We're doing stuff daily in there in terms of technique analysis, nutrition support from fantastic coaches, stuff on mindset, all of the things that you're going to need to really get the most out of your kettlebell sport training. So hopefully you found that helpful. Any questions, reach out. I'm finding it's really useful and helpful for me to get this stuff out there. So if you are enjoying it, please feel free to subscribe to the page. Reach out, tell me if it's helpful, tell me if it's not. Always, I've got thick skin, so I can take constructive feedback as well. So, but until next time, guys, take it easy.